what I've noticed, probably one of the characters that is most wanted by the Multiversus fanbase is Ben 10. Personally, Ben 10 is also my childhood favorite show that I just remember so many things from watching the original 2005 series, moving on to Alien Force, and then also sticking with the Ultimate Alien until I obviously grew up and kind of lost interest. But today we are going to dedicate a full video on what way Ben 10 could play inside of Multiversus, his movesets, his variants, and so much more. Now I'm planning to make this series for some of the most wanted leaked characters that are going to be coming out in Multiversus, and actually fingers crossed Ben 10 actually comes out because it's not 100% confirmed, but I've wanted to dedicate a full video to see how he could potentially play. So firstly, I need to mention that Ben 10 would have multiple different variants, but before I can get into that, I need to explain to you how he would play. So in my opinion, just having different variants of Ben 10's aliens, I decided that he would simply attack with the use of his aliens. So that means that his variants would include mainly the normal human versions of him, which I will be getting into later. Now do bear in mind, this is kind of like one of my first times ever coming up with a moveset / attack style for a character, and I'm hoping to improve over time. So some of these things you might not fully agree with, or you would think that there are better ways of going about it. So if that's the case, definitely be sure to comment down below, as that would really help me out, and also nice to see what other ways you think that Ben 10 could work. Now I kind of based him off of the characters that already exist in the game, as it was a nice template to work off of. I think one of the characters that he would be the most similar to is, for now anyway, Jake inside of the game, because Jake is one of the characters that is actually a shapeshifter that not only grows big but super long into houses, into cars, and even a horse, which would allow me to kind of use as a guide of how Ben 10 could simply turn into the aliens. And that's the first thing I want to say. So he would basically just appear like Jake does as a horse. He would quickly morph into the alien that I'm going to talk about, and it would just kind of work with the game. Now another thing that would become an issue, and I don't know how they would go about doing this, is the hitboxes, as Ben 10 himself is pretty short if you consider the younger ages, and then he goes into 15, 16, 17, he becomes taller, and also I will be talking about the adult version, which is even bigger. Not to mention his aliens also grow in different sizes, from short to tall to big to fat. It's just different creations, so we're just gonna kind of ignore that, just put that away, the whole idea of maybe it not working because he can be different sizes and hitboxes would change. Let's just have fun for now. So moving on to our attacks, I concentrated mainly on two different aliens, that being Forearms and Diamond Head. Now I based some of these aliens off of the originals and the Alien Force, as everything after that kind of becomes blurry, but I tried my best to include as many of them as I could and tried to stick around at least 10 aliens or below 10, so kind of sticking with the whole idea of Ben 10. Now for his neutral side up and down attacks on the ground, I think that could be taken over by Forearms. Now one thing you could say is, since he has Forearms, wouldn't that be a slight bit unfair? And I think they could easily fix that issue of simply making the Forearms 2 on each side hitting at the same time, making it just a normal punch, obviously not increasing the damage because there are 2 hands on both sides, and just making it like a normal character would go at the opponent. Now one thing I want to mention is for the side attack, I kind of based that around Superman's attack, as he does have a rapid striking attack sometimes that he can do on his opponents, and I think this could almost work perfectly for Forearms, as he would go quickly at the opponent and increase the amount of damage they are getting on them, and I think it just works almost perfectly for Forearms. Now for the air attacks, I decided to go for Diamond Head, and the reason for that is because he is more of like a shapeshifter kind of alien that I think would work, because you're up in the air, you can create crystals out of nowhere, which would allow for some very interesting attacks. Now for the neutral one, Diamond Head emits crystals that attack. You would basically just create crystals and just attack the opponents with different types of attacks from that. But I think the most interesting one is up and down, as going up you would emit like a spiky crystal that would allow you to take out the enemy, and down it will allow you to create the same thing, but obviously throw the enemy down like every character does. But that's it for the attacks, just 2 different aliens would do the similar thing that every character does, and nothing extremely special, as in my opinion the special one comes in with the actual special attacks. Now I'm going to break each one of these down to explain to you how in my opinion these could work. So for the first one, we're going to go for neutral, and that one being the ground attack, and in my opinion Heat Blast could be the first one that allows you to use fireballs to throw at your enemies. Now I kind of looked at Morty with his grenades and other characters that can shoot or throw things, and I think this could work very well. And for the air attack, it will be very similar to what he does on the ground, but instead of turning into Heat Blast, I also decided to include Swamp Fire into this one, just kind of opening the whole idea of different aliens being used. For the side attack, I based this on what Jake can do with his horse attack, as I think this would work perfectly for Cannonbolt. If you don't know what Cannonbolt does, he turns into a ball and starts rolling around the place, which would 100% work very well with that kind of attack. But I think another character that he could change into, and it would differ from the two ones, obviously putting in like a system of RNG into it, is Wildmud. Personally, Wildmud was always just one of those characters that I always really liked. I remember having a toy of him. I remember him being in the first like live action movie and being one of my favorite parts of the film itself. So I just wanted to really include Wildmud into this, but also Cannonbolt, because they're kind of the same. Obviously Wildmud is a bit crazy, but Cannonbolt is like the actual conscious one. But since they both kind of run around or roll around, I think this would work very well. The air attack and ground attack will be very similar, since it's the exact same thing, just you can use one in the air and one not in the air. Now for the up attack, I decided to kind of base it also on Jake, but not exactly. So for the up attack, Jake can kind of stretch and become extremely long, and instead of Ben 10 turning into an extremely long character, I decided for him to change into big characters. So on the ground he would change into Humongosaurus, and in the air he would turn into Way Big. Now I know their sizes are very much different, and that would kind of change up stuff. It was just something I thought of. Now if you don't want to introduce Way Big, since Way Big is, you know, way too big, haha, then just make it that Humongosaurus also does the thing in the air. I think that would be the only thing that he doesn't attack, doesn't do anything, just stands there, and if players jump into you or run into you, they would just bounce off of you. So if you use an attack from the ground and they're above you, the change in scale would damage the player, and so on and so forth. I don't think it's fair if the characters start attacking, but since we already have Iron Giant, this does open up a possibility of characters becoming big or even bigger than Iron Giant. And for the last attack, the down one, I think I had the most fun with this one. This was the most exciting one for me. So for the down on the ground, I think he could turn into Goop and just turn into like this slime of just green, obviously Goop stuff on the ground, but also Goop has this like weird alien thing above his head, which in my opinion would be the thing you damage for Goop to stop doing Goop stuff. If that makes sense. Anyway, what that would do is simply just limit the player from running or just jumping around, similar to the way Batman does with his smoke grenade. So it would just simply slow you down, nothing crazy, no damage, since I think it would just be unfair on both the player who plays as Ben 10, because like you'd have to perfectly time it, but it would also be unfair for the player that's trying to attack you. Now the way I thought about doing this is either they do hit that weird thing above his head, or he just simply has a time limit and it wouldn't last very long, but it would slow down enemies. Now for the air attack, this one was the most exciting for me, and the reason for that is because I would love for Bloxes to be the character to be used here, and this would open up a pretty cool possibility of what he can do. So once you're in the air, you would be able to create these kind of like damaging blocks effect onto the player down below, which would stop them from jumping up, or you could use it also as an attack, so the player would get damaged and not be able to move. Now this would definitely be a really nice way of spiking players out of the map and different methods like that, and it would be kind of a small-ish but also big radius, so the player wouldn't be able to escape it. Just, you know, include some spicy overpowered stuff. Now last thing that I want to cover is his signature perks. This one was a bit confusing to me as to how I could make this work, but there's 3 ones that I came up with that would be definitely really nice, and they're mostly concentrating on the special attacks, which I guess isn't the best thing, but hey, just go with it. So for the first one, I decided to include Heat Blast and Swamp Fire's fireballs to deal a tiny bit more extra damage. That one wouldn't be too overpowered or broken. I think it would just be really nice. And the second one is Goop's ability can now slow down enemies even more, you know, just a tiny bit, and it would also last a tiny bit longer. And the last one is going for Bloxes again, but this time around the Bloxes would stay a tiny bit longer, which would prohibit you from jumping around. And I based this one mostly on what Steven Universe can do with his shields, and they stick around for a while, so I think this could very well work with what Bloxes would create. Just stick around for nothing crazier than like 3 seconds or even like 4 seconds, just to stick around a tiny bit more, so that maybe you could throw an enemy off of the map, use it, and they would struggle to jump back over. But obviously make it a radius that would, I guess, blend with the environment. It's just a lot of different things that I thought of. Just too much inside of my head right now. Now for the variants, the default version of Ben 10 in my opinion just has to be Ben 10 from 2005, the original young version. I think it would just look amazing, and it's probably one of my favorites. For the second one, Alien Force slash Ultimate Alien, would be great to see that leather green jacket with that black stripe on it and that 10. Perfection, childhood memories. Also in Omniverse, they kind of give a different look to Ben 10, so we might be able to see, in my opinion, the young version, which is very similar to Ben 10 from 2005, but he has like really green eyes. They're just fully green, so maybe they could make that work. But also for the 16 to 17 years old Ben 10, he does look a tiny bit more different from the previous one in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien that I think would look great. And the next one is Ben 10 from 2016's reboot. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. Supposedly it's not great, so the look is a bit different. It's like green and black shirt, so yeah, might as well. And lastly, Ben 10,000. Now we've seen plenty of Ben 10, 10,000, but Ben 10,000 looks, and I think this one would be the best. Yeah, just the original. So adult Ben 10. Don't make him taller than Alien Force, I guess, but then again, he does become a slight bit bigger on the size. Doesn't matter. This game is kind of like in 2D, but not. It's just really cool. The variants, you know, we flew through them. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video. If you did enjoy, or if you have any complaints, be sure to comment down below. If you like this series and watched this far, I would love to make it on other characters. There's characters like Ted Lasso, which is an over-the-top one, Joker, Raven, potentially Walter White. There's just so many other characters that are going to be coming out, and I'd love to talk about their potential movesets, their variants, and stuff like that, as it just makes me giddy and excited. So yeah, be sure to subscribe for more Multiversus content and more of this series, and also be sure to drop a like on the video, as that does really help out. Ben 10, hopefully it come out soon, because I cannot wait, and I'll see you guys